Welcome to Blue Iron IP's Patent Myth podcast. I'm Russ Krajak, your host, and the author of Investing in Patents, as well as a soon-to-be-released book called Startup IP Strategy. Blue Iron provides financing for patents, so we look at startup companies and their assets, the patent assets, as having value and trying to figure out how do we create value with those assets. Our view is that 95% of all the patents out there are worthless, and the percentage might even be higher for startup companies. Our aim is to take down some of those existing patent myths and put in better practices so that startups could do a much better job with their IP. Inventorship is one of those things that is really abused. It's thrown around like it's some kind of award system. And when that happens, the patents can be in jeopardy. I want to talk about the myth of inventorship. I think inventorship is one of those things that are really abused by people. And part of it is, I don't know if it's intentional, but it's, they have other motives for adding people as co-inventors to a patent application. Of course, there's people who leave out co-inventors that they should be adding. That's kind of the sin of omission and the sin of commission there. Either way, it's part of the misunderstanding or maybe disrespect that people have for inventorship. And truly, inventorship is one of those things that, if not done correctly, can just kill the patent, okay? And it can make it impossible to enforce, or basically invalidate the patent if you don't do it correctly. And so treating it with I don't know, flippancy, treating it without really valuing what inventorship means from a legal standpoint can cause you some problems down the road. Now, in our Constitution, patents are granted to inventors, which means real people. And the requirements from the patent statute are that everyone who claims to be an inventor has to have contributed to some part of the patent claims, okay? And you sign a document under penalty of 5 years in jail and $5,000, real serious fines. You're signing this document saying that you're the first and true inventor and that you should be accorded this patent. Lying is not a good thing. It truly is a federal offense to lie to the patent office, and there's severe penalties. Now, I have never been able to find an instance where somebody was prosecuted and jailed for misfiling a patent application. Usually, you say you're sorry at some point and make all that go away. But the key is that patents must be filed in the name of the inventors. And I think part of the problem is that people don't realize kind of what the inventorship really means. The inventors are the ones that contribute to the claims in the patent. Now, the claims are the part in the back that define what that invention is. Okay, that's the part that goes to the examiner rejects it, and the patent attorney responds, and they go back and forth and back and forth. And we can amend the claims and whatever. We dial those in, and then the examiner says, yes, that's an allowable patent, and you're granted the patent with a gold star on it, or the gold seal on it. That's the part that matters. What a lot of people look at is the specification. The specification is the figures and that long text description of we can put this feature in, we can put that feature, we can manufacture it this way, we can manufacture it that way. Here's our next product. Here's, we talk about all this other stuff. People that contribute to the specification or anything in the specification, that doesn't matter. That's not who we list as inventors. The people that we list as inventors are the people that contribute to the claims in the back. And so when we look at inventorship, when we're either a manager or we're an entrepreneur and, trying to figure out who on my team do I list as co-inventors, we do not look at the specification. We do not say, oh, so-and-so suggested this feature and we have the feature described in the patent application. That doesn't count, okay? That is not the legal definition. The legal definition is that invention in the claims? So we need to look through the claims and say whatever, we're claiming from the patent office, did our inventors invent that thing? Not what's in the specification. Okay, so that's a distinction that a lot of people just, never really comes across people's minds. When I'm doing due diligence on a company, or we're looking to finance some patents or do loans or whatever, or put some value on a patent or whatever, if I see a long list of inventors, that's usually a surface area for attack. It's a way to invalidate the patent in a way that is absolutely deadly to the patent. Okay, it doesn't diminish it 10%. It goes to 0. Okay, if somebody did inventorship wrong for some reason, the patent is completely and totally invalid. Okay, it's not worth just a little bit less. It's worth 0. So that's one of the first things you do in litigation to kill the patent if you can. And the way this works is you call every inventor, and they're all listed there. They have their name and their city and state, and you go find them if you can. Litigation will be happening several years after you filed the patent application. So things come and go. People leave the company. People do this and that and the other thing. Maybe it's hard to track them down, but you finally will. And you ask the inventor the story, and the story of the invention, and how did they come to have this invention, and what was their part in it, and all that. And if nothing else, inventors love to tell this story, especially stories that make them look good. They're going to talk about how they toiled and toiled and toiled and toiled, and finally, alone in the lab where nobody else is around, that light bulb went off, and it was that huge moment, and they saw the solution, and they wrote it all down. And then you ask them, well, what about all these other people that were listed? Well, it turns out that this inventor, was the typical crazy engineer, high maintenance prima donna that didn't get enough respect and got pushed out because he didn't get along with all his friends, and go on, and he has this bad track record. He's not going to talk about that, but he's going to be really resentful for how he was treated. He's going to be resentful that his voice wasn't heard. And, I'm saying him because most likely, that tends to fit the typical male engineer who might carry that resentment around for a long time. I wouldn't be that person. No. Anyway, once we talk to that person and they start spewing that so and so was added inappropriately, that my manager, wanted that person on because they were just part of the team and they didn't really contribute anything, and they didn't show up for any of the meetings and they weren't there, and if I can get a disgruntled employee to write all that down or sign an affidavit to that fact, then I can kill the patent. I got the smoking gun that if that patent was ever asserted against me, I can pull that out and say, look, I got a signed affidavit that says the inventorship is all messed up and it was done inappropriately. And the patent's invalid. So stop your lawsuit. And now I have a hammer to negotiate with the other side. If I'm doing the financing and I see that's just a big surface area for attack, which means that there are more ways that patent can be invalidated that, may or may not ever come to pass, but it's just a higher risk for us. A lot of inventors, or I should say a lot of managers, not so much the inventors tend to know who they are and tend to be very protective of their inventions, and they tend to not want to share the glory with other people, with co-inventors. But managers or startup CEOs or whatever, they think about the patents more as a bonus system. I saw this I was an engineer at Hewlett Packard, big company. And I also did patent work for Microsoft, another big company. And I saw this happen all the time where the patent system was purely a bonus pool that didn't come out of my budget. It came from corporate, and I can spend that money all day long by just adding more and more people onto a patent. I think a lot of people, a lot of managers don't necessarily do it nefariously, and they weren't evil about it or blatantly bad about it, but they would tend to do that. And you'd see this a lot with Asian inventors, where it's just common practice to always add your boss or your boss's boss onto an invention because it came out of the lab that they were managing or whatever. And it's a cultural thing. It's a show of respect, and it's an expectation that the cultural requirement for that really conflicts with our U.S. legal requirement for only the appropriate people be named as inventors. When I first started practicing patent law, I worked for a law firm, and the attorneys, the managing attorney would always put the owner of the company's name, the owner's name, as the first inventor on a patent. And he did it just to make the owner of the company, make him feel good, make him feel valued, because this is the guy writing the check. And the attorney would put people's names on there just to get favor from them and keep that relationship as good as possible. I went back to that, I circled back to that client several years after I left the firm, and I told him, this actually is risking the value of your patent by putting your name first. Not that, only your name goes on there only if you contributed. If your team of, at the time, 15 engineers designed it and came up with the idea, and you had nothing to do with it, don't put your name on there, and be honest about it. And the CEO is, glad to have that advice, because he didn't realize how much a problem that was. So let's, I'll tell you a story that I learned an awful lot from. I was at Hewlett Packard, an engineer, and I was in a little group that did test systems, custom test systems. And our job was to churn out these, churn out very, very low volume product. We might do one off, build just one product, custom built, and send it off to a customer. Sometimes, for us, high volume is like 10. If we had 10, that was like a huge order, But there was the other part of our division was this part called the lab. And the lab made really, really high-end, super expensive test equipment. Ultra accurate, but for them, they did the quote high volume products. And for them, a high volume product might be 100 a year, 500, 1,000 a year was like, oh my, that was just killing it. We're in a different world from consumer products where 1 million a year might be a big deal. These were super high end, but in the lab, I think there was this, they in the lab would view us in the custom test system with a little bit of jealousy because we were jetting around to, install our product at different clients, all around the world and doing that kind of stuff. We're inventing all kinds of new stuff because everything we do is brand new. And so we were filing a bunch of patent applications and all this kind of stuff. We in the custom test system looked at the lab, with incredible amounts of jealousy because they would all leave at 3:00 and go golfing. For 3 years in a row, I, as a mechanical engineer, released 300 parts every year, 300 parts for 3 years in a row. Okay, so I was just spitting out new designs all the time. In the lab, the average mechanical engineer would release 3 parts a year. And my parts were really kind of simple and crude, a block with some, countersunk holes and some threads or dowel pins or whatever. Their parts are like gloriously designed. I mean, they look good. They had all these neat features in them and they were cool. Okay. Don't get me wrong. Their stuff was way, way, way better than mine, but they only did 3 parts a year and I was doing 300. I mean, the difference was palatable. And there was a point where my custom test system group was going to develop a product with the lab. Okay. And the lab people were going to be the ones that were going to kind of make it a quote HP product with the HP quality and all that. I guess at the time we were Agilent Technologies, or we were just switching over to Agilent. But anyway, I mean, there was a very, very high level of quality for products that had our company name on it, and deservedly so. The stuff that we were doing in the custom group was, not quite as rigorously tested. They were just, we banged them out pretty quick. Anyway, so we had this meeting between our guys, myself and some people from the custom test system and some people from the lab, the people that were going to make the product into a quote, product with all the testing and quality that goes into that. And we started talking about what this product's going to do and started throwing some ideas around, and there was a lot of energy in the room. The people from the lab were starting to get excited about it, and I was kind of the principal designer, so I was throwing out some of the concepts, and then people were picking them up and internalizing them and starting to riff on them. Hey, we can do it this way, we can do that, and we can go on. And it was a great meeting. It's a lot of fun, a lot of energy. And as we were all getting up to leave, one of the people from the lab was hanging around the door waiting for me to come out. And when I come out, they kind of leaned to me quietly and said, hey, when you file the patent on that, make sure you include me as an inventor. And, I was kind of miffed by that. I was miffed for a couple reasons. One is, that was kind of low rent to just have to ask me to do the work of filling out this invention disclosure form. And then, they would just sit there in their chair and I would come over and get them to sign it. So they wanted me to do all that work. I was kind of miffed about that. I was also miffed that they didn't say, they weren't saying, well, everybody in the room or anything like that. They just wanted it for themselves. Okay. It was purely a selfish play on their part. But what I told them was, you know what? I filed an invention disclosure on every single thing that we talked about in that meeting. And I filed it 3 days ago. Okay. Before you ever heard about this stuff, I'd already filed the invention disclosure. And then that was the end of the conversation. But what I learned from that was really important. And what I learned from that was that this person, my colleague, actually, truly, honestly, deep down in their heart, thought that they were an inventor. I mean, there was almost no shaking that person that they felt like they were an inventor. And they had experienced that adrenaline rush, the dopamine hit, whatever, serotonin, whatever. They had that emotional feeling, that experience, that physiological thing that happens when you see a brand new idea and you say, well, man, that is cool. And then when you start, when you start to internalize that idea a little bit and you start to think, oh, yeah, I can build on that. We could do it this way. Oh, we could turn around and use it that way. Oh, yeah, it would work in this situation. Oh, yeah, it'd work here. Oh, this is wonderful. And, that feeling, that emotional, that physiological experience that person had was real to them, absolutely real to them. And, there's no way, if I had not filed that invention disclosure before, there is no way that I could convince that person that they were not an inventor, because they felt it. They felt it deep down in their bones. And they weren't going to change from that. They felt it. It was a real experience for them. The only thing that kept them from being named as a co-inventor was the fact that I had already filed the thing with all those ideas already down. Now, did I think about every single version and all that, or everything that we had talked in that meeting? I don't know. Maybe not. But the invention disclosure is pretty complete by the time it went in, because I worried about this kind of thing happening. Because I felt the need to file patent or invention disclosure forms early, because there was a whole bunch, it was kind of this social thing, this social credibility thing of people getting, their name called and, presenting the plaques and the award certificates and all that kind of stuff. Oh, by the way, you got $100 for just putting your name on a invention disclosure form. That was nothing to sneeze at. And then $1,000 once we filed the patent with the patent office, when the patent attorney did his thing. So $1,000 bonus, there's a lot of people signing up for that, and the fact that invention and getting a patent is such a deeply held, thing for, or goal or ambition, or I don't know what you call it. It goes to the absolute root of a lot of people. Okay. I've worked with inventors who can tell you to the number that they have 123 patent applications, or, 56 issued patents. They keep track of this stuff. And because it really, really, really means something to them. It's part of who they are. It's part of, their marking their stake on the progress of humanity that nobody in the history of the universe has ever come up with this idea, and it gets granted with this beautiful brass plaque from the patent office that is hung in the lobby, and everybody goes by and worships. It's that is a huge thing for a lot of people, and far transcends every other desire that they have in their life. But this says they've been somewhere, and inventors will fight tooth and nail to get their names on a patent application in a lot of cases. There's people where it's not that deep, for them, but others who are, okay? The thing about patent application and this inventorship thing is what I'm trying to get with this, talking about this myth, is that inventorship is not a commodity that we throw around. It's not something that we can just say, oh, I'll just add him, or wouldn't it be nice, I don't want to offend my co-founders, so all three of us will be named as inventors. Okay? There's issues with that, okay? And one of the problems with it is that unless there's an assignment, and I'll talk about assignments and stuff in another podcast, but if there's three people who are co-founders of a company, and they all they're all co-inventors on a patent, they all own an undivided interest in that patent. Okay. What does that really mean? That means that, let's say one of them leaves, for whatever reason, they leave the company, and two of them go forward with the company, and the inventorship or the ownership is never cleared up. Okay. So one guy's hanging out there. He's got, he's one inventor, and the other two inventors kind of give or sign or lease or loan or license their interest to a startup company. Startup company's moving along. And then startup company does some deal to license that patent to somebody. Well, they go through this whole process of licensing. They figure, okay, we're going to, license it for $1 a unit to whatever manufacturer, for example. Well, the licensee, the manufacturer, can now call up the other guy, the guy who still owns a part of the patent, and say, you know what, can I license it from you for 50 cents? And that guy will get a call out of the blue and say, oh, I'll pay you 50 cents a piece for a license to your patent. He's like, sure. And he can undercut the other two people. Okay. So when we get to the next podcast where we talk about ownership, we're going to talk about these kind of problems where ownership and inventorship kind of collide. Actually, we're going to talk more about the ownership issues than just the pure inventorship. Anyway, those are a few thoughts about inventorship. Make sure you do it right. Make sure that the inventor is the person who contributed to the claims, not to the specification. Okay, specification, remember, specification does not count. The specification hurts you. Anything in specification is bad, bad, bad. Everything in the claims is good, good, good. So, when we're looking at who do we include as inventors, we have to include people who contributed to what's in the claims, not necessarily what's in the specification or the description of the invention. Well, thanks for listening. I'm Russ Krajak, CEO of Blue Iron IP. We're a patent finance company where we'll make 50 to 100K investments in startup companies to get them decent patent portfolios. And then we'll do loans against patents at $2 to $5 million for later stage companies that have some revenue. You can find me at blueironip.com. You can pick up my book, Investing in Patents, available on Amazon. We're always looking for new deals to finance and syndication partners with angel or venture firms. And please feel free to get in touch with me. And I look forward to chatting with you.